Well, hello, welcome back again. And now we are going to focus on chapter 4 on the findings. And this chapter is more or less divided in two big sections and one kind of small conclusion because we have two types of findings, the quant and the qual. And the quant findings, I think, are very easy to write because everything is very clear. It's about numbers, how you interpret these numbers and the results. I think you already did it in your lab too. So basically, start that section 4.1 with the maybe I can explain with the good example. Explain that section with the descriptive statistics and then write one paragraph describing or talking about those descriptive statistics. So literally just talk about it. What's the minimum, maximum, what it means, what is interesting. You cannot really conclude anything from here. Because remember, we need to build a theoretical argument. So there is no real strong conclusion, but it's a good indication of the sample that you have. Like I think the reader will be happy to read all of this. Similar is the correlation matrix. That's the next step to discuss. So after the descriptives, now the correlation matrix, and it's the same thing. Just discuss interesting correlations that you find. And again, this cannot be conclusive. It's just interesting things that you can see from your sample. And finally, the regression analysis. Here, follow what we discussed last in this last in this last lab where we interpreted our results. So of course, copy paste your table and then start discussing your models. Model one, where you have the direct relationship. So go step by step assessing if you move to the next step, all of these things. And then model two, and then model three. And that's it. Finally, I think the final conclusion of this 4.1 is the support or rejection of your hypothesis. And we already talked about that in lab 2. So I think this quant part is very easy to write. It's copy pasting the tables and just write about those tables. Then the next section, I think this can be a bit tricky and it can take some time to write it. It's not as simple as the other one. This one is the qualitative part, the qualitative findings. So in workshop 2, you will analyze your data and you will end up with the important things that emerge from your interviews. So what you will, I think one way of writing this section is it's not as good as easy as the other one in terms of structure here. There is no rule on how to write it, but my suggestion is that maybe you can have subsections in your 4.2 section where you discuss the aggregates that you will construct in your data structure. So maybe it's a good idea to open up the box and talk about those. And when you talk about those aggregates that you identify, it's important that you include quotes from your transcript. That's the evidence that you need to use to show the data that you collected. So you are saying like this is important and this is like part of the response from an interviewee. That's how you report this qualitative part. So as I mentioned, you can follow the structure where you discuss your aggregates in each section with evidence of that. And I think maybe you can have at the end one part. It doesn't have to be a new section. If you want to do it like that, you can do it. But try to explain how the aggregates talk to each other, because it's not as simple as only talking about groups, only talking about clusters. They are connected or disconnected, or they're in conflict, or maybe emotions are in conflict with technology, or they help each other. I don't know. Those connections are very interesting. And maybe here you can also kind of have like another figure similar to this is optional. I think here I don't want you to push for this. I think if you prefer to write it in words, it's good. We can come back to another framework in the discussion, but that's the main point of this. Like I think there are connections in between the different themes and the different aggregates that you can exploit and explain in this section. It doesn't have to be a formal subsection. It can be just a few paragraphs at the end of qualitative. And then finally, one overall finding where it's kind of like a conclusion, very empirically oriented, where you kind of put together the two things. What did you learn from the quant part? Did you support or reject your hypothesis? And then what did you learn with the other, and how do they complement each other? It's possible that maybe it's I think it will happen. The qualitative adds more complexity. Sometimes the qualitative answers the surprising from the quant, or sometimes it complicates the not surprising finding from the quant. So it really depends on what happens. So it's just like kind of a conclusion from the findings. And remember that finding section is very empirical. It's only about data. You don't need to discuss previous studies. That will come later in the discussion. So focus only on the different findings that you need, the different empirical findings, and that's it, the data, and that's it. That's all you need. So I think that's everything for chapter 4. It where I think you already have a lot of the work done with your lab too, especially that, and the workshop too, also with the final data structure. Also, don't forget to include the data structure as an appendix. And I think it will be also nice if you include the transcript of your interview. Like you can see in here, they have the transcript. And I think they also have the appendix of this. They even included the color coding. So I think it will be nice if you include that as an appendix. It doesn't have to be like the tables in the text. The appendix can be at the end. So that's it. That's it for today.